the end of our public comments. And then we will have our adjournment from the meeting. So with that in mind, is everybody can hear everyone? Is that correct? Everyone can hear? Yes, no, got it? All right.
Yes.
All right. And so here we go. So the first issue up tonight Rachel says that the volume is too low. I don't know if you can turn it up on your end. Zing, 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 zing. Does that increase the volume on my microphone or just on the speakers?
Sounds the same volume. It's a proper volume, at least from the way I can hear it.
Yeah, it sounds okay to me as well.
I can hear it, but only if I put my phone up to my ear. So that's what I'm gonna do. So you're gonna see my ear.
All right.
So-
Okay, so the first item tonight is some administrative business. It's the approval of the February 15th, 2022 meetings. Did everyone get a chance to look at them? They were very detailed, lots of information in there. Are there any edits, additions, anything that you would like to do with them? Anything, edits, nothing? No?
No.
Okay.
I didn't get to see them. I requested access to the, for some reason I wasn't granted access to the document. I don't know whether I got it now. But I'm sure I'll trust that they're good.
Okay. Yeah, those are, she mails those out on a weekly basis, usually the day following the meetings. All right, so what I would like then is a motion to approve the minutes from the February 15th, 2022 meeting.
So motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is passed. The minutes are approved. Now we're going to move to the next order of our business. We're going to ask for updates from the Village Board, the Environmental Planning Board, and the Ulster County Planning Board. Will Murray, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you have any updates for us?
I do not have any updates related that would be relevant to the planning board. But we did, I mean, somewhat related is we're still examining a food truck law for the village. That's been to our attorney, that's for the village board. This would put a possibility of food trucks, maybe up to 4 in various locations around town, but in the business districts, the B2 and the NBR, but well away from any other food type business that's already in existence. The only other thing I want to do is thank Autumn for such wonderful minutes that she's been taking both for the village board and for the planning board.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you. We do appreciate it. So we're going to be moving on to the public comment. So I'd like a motion to open public comment.
So motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
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 So the public comment is now open. Autumn, is there anyone here to speak to any issue before the board, just in general public comment?
I don't have any formal guests, but there are a number of people on the call. Would anybody like to speak?
Okay. I think most of the people that are here are involved with one of or more of the applications. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold that open till the end of the meeting in case someone else does want to speak. At the end of the meeting, they'll have the opportunity to do so. So as there are no public hearings, we're going to move on to the application review. The first one is a site plan review for PB 2117 62 South Chestnut. Mr. Moore, we've gone through this, an application for a site plan approval to replace a pre-existing non-complying 197 square foot 1-car garage with a new 1,200 square foot two-car garage behind an existing residence. Applicant proposes to replace the existing asphalt driveway with gravel to reduce lot coverage. Subject property consists of approximately, and it gives the acreage there. We classify this as a type 2 action at the December 7th meeting. It was exempt from referral to the Ulster County Planning Board. Public hearing was held on the 18th of January. And so now what we are going to do, we asked for an improved drainage plan to be submitted in response to Corey's memo of January 3rd. And the memo noted that this area is notorious for elevated stormwater problems. We do have that, and everyone did get a copy of that. The board may want an opportunity for Corey or the village engineer to review prior to issuing approval. It's something that we will look at. We can review the draft resolution as well if necessary. So the issues as discussed at the meeting on January 18th, we should review the applicant's plan for stormwater mitigation according to Corey's memo. I think that's pretty clear there. Ask our attorneys, is there anything that we're missing on this right now? Rick, do you want to weigh
No,
in
it's-
on it?
No, there's nothing else other than what I had noted in my memo is that, the board needs to review this and determine if it's satisfied with it or if it wants the planning board engineer to review it as well.
Okay. All right, so regarding this, we did get a letter from Andy Willingham that's stating that he will address a minimal approach for the applicant regarding the spring. Wanted to know if the spring was on the south side. If so, he felt that would probably handle it. Planning board is going to want to discuss the mitigation efforts as it flows into the streets accompanied by ice. It's a hazard. Then we have to determine if we consider the runoff to be significant. And so we need to look at this. I don't know if we have any, Andy, and you can answer this question. Do we know what the original flow was, what the estimated flow will be following the mitigations? So what we need to do then is just kind of let you have the floor. And if you would please explain to us what you are proposing.
Sure, I will share my screen. Okay, everybody can see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I went out to the site. This is the existing house. This is 32 on the left. This is the proposed garage. We're proposing to convert, you see how the hatch pattern here is all pavement, and he's gonna take all that out and put in porous gravel. So the like 3/4 inch gravel that'll absorb water. And I went to the site and looked at all the gutter systems, and I can actually get all the water to flow down the south side of the building and out towards the road, to make sure that no water will get to this neighbor, which is the hills facing to the north, if any water is going to go that way. So that'll cut off all the roof drainage and bring it towards the road. And this will decrease runoff by changing that much pavement. That's a large area to porous. It will definitely have a decrease in runoff from this particular site. As far as the spring goes, I spoke with Corey and I spoke with the owner. It's a kind of a collective spring. It's not one spring that's creating this issue along 32. I know what they're talking about now because I drive down there every single day. It's just, there's a lot of groundwater that comes out of this hill because of the steepness and the college up there, and it just seeps out from all different spots. And it's just really bad drainage on this road here. The DOT, it runs like in along the sidewalk, and it's puddles and there's ice, and there are some issues here in the DOT right away, and that it really needs to be improved. But as far as our site dealing with any water from roof drainage or springs coming out of this wall, it's all handled on his site.
Okay, now the gravel has been approved. It's not the gravel that's gonna pack and become impervious in itself, is it?
No, the item 4 gravel, the typical gravel can do that over time, but this is 3/4 inch washed gravel, so it doesn't have any of the fines in it. So this is actual pervious gravel, and it is difficult to maintain, and Bruce knows that. But this will absorb water.
Okay. And his plan is to keep that gravel there. He's not going to go and get a permit and turn it back into pavement without having to go back to the planning board.
Yeah, I mean, Rick can answer that, but I would think that would be a violation of this site plan.
Rick, you want to address that? Because I know that it doesn't, if I want to put a pavement on my driveway, I have gravel, all I have to do is get a permit. Does this site plan prevent him from doing that, or do we need to write into it a condition of approval?
I can't remember. Let me bring up the proposed resolution to see what it says now with respect to it. Right now, it says the asphalt driveway shall be replaced with gravel as large stone not compacted and is deemed acceptable pervious material by the building inspector upon consultation with the village engineer. We can add to that and say that the driveway may not be repaved without an approval to do so by the planning board.
I think that's a good idea. I can't find the proposed, and I know you sent it. Can't find my copy of the proposed resolution.
Autumn, are you able to go ahead and forward that to everyone?
Just a moment.
Yeah, I just can't find it, and it's a problem with me, not with you actually sending it.
So Andy, I had a question about this plan. So I see that dotted line is going to be a 4-inch drainage line. Is that calculated to be able to carry all of the runoff from that whole roof? Because it's quite a large structure. I would think under heavy rain it would be.
Yeah, I think that making that last piece of line a 6-inch probably isn't a bad idea. I think it'd probably be okay with a 4-inch, but we can do that. It's not really any more money. So
What were you asking
Okay.
to do? I'm sorry, I missed it, Zach.
I was just a little concerned the 4-inch line wouldn't be able to handle all of the runoff.
Isn't 4-inch shoreline pretty typical of what you use, Andy?
it is, and when you get to like a larger building, you start to go up to the 6 and 8. But
This is a 2-car garage.
yeah, and it's taken both structures. So I would
But
say,
as you say, it's not a lot more money, so,
yeah, I don't think it's a big deal.
yeah.
So you're going to replace it with a 6-inch?
That's
Yeah, I'll do
big,
this.
Jesus.
Yeah, maybe the last little piece there, when those last 2 liters come in, we can do a 6 there.
Wow.
I mean, Dennis, you've seen how hard it rains these days. It really downpours sometimes.
Oh, I know, but 4-inch should be adequate, and I know Andy does a great job. Hey, speaking of that, just off the note, one of my customers, Newburgh Windwater, Andy.
Yeah.
He can't get 4-inch PVC pipe, shore pipe. He's been back ordered for 6 months.
Yeah, pipe is.
Unbelievable.
I know. It's crazy.
So this is a 4-inch line from where to where, Andy?
I would say that if you want to put it in the resolution, say increase to 6-inch from the southwest corner of the house. At the southwest corner of the house.
To the road,
Yeah.
southwest corner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So with the spring not being a point, but being a flow that comes across that by the retaining wall area and then down to the front, do you honestly believe that gravel is going to take care of most of the flow of that spring?
Well, I think that spring is a culmination of probably a dozen or more seeps coming out of that hill. So basically it's a high groundwater table, which is pretty common in the village. And when you have a hill that's steep, it just kind of pops out in all different places. So I think maybe some of it's coming from this property, but the vast majority probably isn't. I think everybody just notices that terrible drainage running down the road. And I don't think it's due to this project. It's a culmination of all just water coming out of that whole area of the village. But I think this site is doing its part to collect that and infiltrate it and convey it as needed.
I mean, I think Andy has, done his best to try to see if he can mitigate the water that appears to be generated by this site. But it obviously is a bigger problem, and it's clear from what Andy is saying, in my opinion, that it's not going to solve the problem that everybody sees as existing. I think it probably makes sense for the board to refer this drainage plan to the planning board engineer to see whether or not he has any other ideas that may mitigate that overall seepage more, or he might be able to tell you that you really can't, and it's not the responsibility of this particular site.
That's a good
Oh.
point.
What about the point that Corey brought up about the fact that this was referred to the New York State DOT to pipe the water directly into the stormwater system, but that the DOT has declined this, even though other residents have asked for it. Should we ask the DOT to take another look at it?
Can we do that? Can we ask the DOT?
Yeah, you certainly can. I wouldn't hold my breath, but yes, you can ask them.
Okay, how do we go about asking them then? If we're gonna ask for the engineer to give us a calculation, we might as well put some, at least.
I would ask your planning board engineer to contact the DOT.
And I will say, I see a lot of, sidewalks and DOT roads. This is bad. I mean, it really needs repair in this area.
Well, plus, as you may know, Andy, they just last week, Dave Roars was over there with his group. They had a break in the sewer line.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what are we going to be specifically asking the DOT to do? Or have him ask the DOT to repair or mitigate?
I think it's best if you ask your engineer to look at the situation, look at this plan, look at the problems with the DOT's right of way, et cetera. And he should be able to fashion a letter to the DOT asking them to mitigate what he believes is the problem, or other improvements that the DOT can make that would alleviate this problem or similar problems in that particular area. And also comment upon this particular drainage plan, and maybe he'll say that's enough, or maybe he'll say it needs something else.
Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to refer this over and ask our village engineer, Dennis Larios, to review the flow of water and give his suggestions or approval, and ask DOT to repair and mitigate the flow from the spring bed. Look at the problems with the DOT right of way, and then ask the DOT for solutions to problems, or give us or to give his stamp of approval to the drainage effort.
I think
All right.
I think Autumn can probably draft a letter to that effect to be signed by you, to be sent to the village engineer. And John, I think that Bill Murray has his hand up.
Yeah, hold on. I'm making notes here because I
Okay.
don't trust my memory. So give me just a moment here so I can make sure that I have all the notes that I need to follow up with. Okay. All right, Bill Murray.
Yeah, just a quick note on the site plan. It looks like it says Route 32 South. That's actually State Route 208.
Okay.
The second thing is not only does that runoff affect the roadway, the DOT was out there, I think, a couple weeks ago when we had that hard freeze, and they were chipping away at the ice that collected on the road. But the property owner also has an issue that water does collect onto the sidewalk, which is used by many pedestrians. So that's another issue to factor into this mitigation effort.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I know that Mr. Willingham's been working towards. So, all right. So we have kind of a decision here. So what I'm going to do is ask for motion to refer this to the village engineer, Dennis Larios, for his review of the issue.
So motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Autumn. So if you can get that done, Andy, when that comes back, I'm sure you'll be one of the first to know. And let's go ahead and schedule for the next meeting, and then we can always cancel in case Dennis doesn't get the information back to us as quickly as that.
Okay. And just to be clear that, referring to Dennis and getting his comments on this property makes sense, but my client doesn't have to wait for the DOT to, I think that, right, this is just something that the DOT should know that there's problems in there right away. It's kind of a separate issue, right?
Yes, as our attorney said, we are not going to be holding our breath. They may act farther down the road, but at least they have been notified, so that we can't say that, no one can say that we didn't make the effort to notify them and get them to act.
Great.
And I will recirculate the resolution of approval the next time this is on the agenda, and I'll wait until we get a report from Dennis Larios, and I may be incorporating some things that he says in there into the resolution.
Okay. All right. Okay, anyone else need, want to weigh in on anything? I think that we've got a direction, a path, and we'll be moving to get some answers here. Okay. All right, Andy, thank you very much for being here. We do appreciate it. We all have our assignments, and so we'll be moving forward with that.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
I know. It's the Andy Willingham show tonight. So the next one is, I saw Mr. Keenan there, PB 2203, 5 Plattekill Avenue. So Brian, we had this all wrapped up and tied with a bow, man. What's going on?
I'm back. Well, after the planning process, when I started moving to the construction and really getting in there with my contractor, I really felt like I needed bigger bathrooms and a little bit bigger kitchen to service my customer base. And when I really looked and some other code things that were issues that were eating up space, it really was going to become a seasonal place. And the new plan really doesn't add seats. It just makes it more of a 12-month business rather than a 6-month. And for the investment I'm putting in, I really need to do business 12 months a year.
Okay. So Andy, I think everyone got the drawings and information from them to look at. Did everyone? Okay. So Andy, do you want to walk us through? I'm going to go to my notes on this, but just if you want to walk us through what's going on with this, put some on the screen, and let's take a look at it. Andy, you are on mute.
Right. That was a really good speech, and you'll never know. All right. So the previous approval was all outdoor seating. It's the same amount of seats, but now the addition is 16 by 72 on the front end. And it's basically the same site plan. It's all the same landscaping. We just kind of moved this stuff up in front of the building. There's a bike rack now. There's a different sign. The village board changed the zoning in the B2, a lot of the requirements after we got the approval. So I'm sure Rick's going to go over a lot of that. We tried to address most of it, but there's some other things we need to do to meet the new B2 zoning. That's basically it as far as the site. And then here is the rendering. So it's going to be kind of more of a traditional A-frame, and still with the outdoor seating, still with the large doors that can be opened when it's nice out. This was a big awning before. Now it's just a small awning. And just
So
kind of,
how much in terms of square footage does this increase the enclosed space?
I believe it's 1,100, I want to say.
1150.
Right.
It was 1440, and now it'll be 2590. And that's basically it. Everything else is the same.
Okay, before we let loose with our board members, let's see here. I just want to take a look at this real quickly before we get started.
I just wanted to reiterate my desire that there was some sort of pedestrian access, a sidewalk. And I feel like I know that Corey talked to you about the possibility of a sidewalk. And that I don't know what this discussion entailed and whether his idea for a sidewalk was, a lot better than the one I had. And also, I understand that that the new requirement is that the sidewalk has to be 5 feet wide. But I feel like, variances are sought for, trucks turning around and this and that. And sidewalks in general aren't 5 feet wide in New Paltz. And that I feel like the purpose, when you have a cafe, what you want is foot traffic. And right now there's just, it's on a parking lot like that. And there's, if you look at the sidewalk down Main Street on the other side of it, there's definitely not 5 feet of space there. You've got stoops coming out and garbage cans on the other side. And I think that if you want to encourage more foot traffic, you should have an alternative route. The sidewalks get so crowded sometimes, when a lot of people are going out to clubs and restaurants, that people end up walking in the street. And so I just think it's an important thing to reconsider in any way that we can, that there's some way of directing sidewalk traffic through that area, especially now that it's become more residential as well.
I think we did talk about this on the last go around, and I think a lot of the people coming here will either be coming right from this parking lot, so they'll come straight in, right into the front here, or if they're coming from Main Street or Plattekill, then they could either come through that parking lot, or if they come through this lot. I mean, it's such a low volume lot. There's only 16, 19 parking spaces. So there really shouldn't be much interaction with cars with such a small parking lot. And if we were to do it, I'm just not sure where it would go. It would have to go, I think, we talked about this last time, we'd have to go on this side and we'd have to get rid of these parking spots.
Right, so it would be more of a pedestrian. I'm not talking about it just in terms of like people's access from the parking lot to the place. I mean, just in terms of like, if you look at the future planning of the village and in incorporating the spaces and having pedestrian traffic that goes by and through businesses and residences. And I feel like that it's sort of a central location, and I think that we can do better than just a big parking lot like that. That's all.
Well, is there a stairway from the lower municipal lot to
Yeah.
the entrance?
On
Yeah,
the corner.
He's adding one.
But-
here.
Okay. Well, I think that would help everyone who's going to be parking in that lot or walking down Plattekill from the direction of Village Hall.
I understand that. I'm talking about pedestrian through traffic. Going to the
Oh,
other
sure, there-
businesses beyond there and going down,
But
going through the
Rachel,
village.
there is no through traffic. It's on kind of a dead end. It doesn't connect to the rest of the lot.
Well, if you walk a lot, I know it seems odd, but if you walk a lot, you do walk through there. People do walk. If you're going to any of the places that are beyond or at the other side of the parking lot, or if you're headed toward, if you're going downtown and you don't want to walk through the main, down Main Street. There is pedestrian traffic through there. And I'm saying that it should be something that we encourage, not just as opposed to the whole sort of, strip mall mentality. You park here and
You're describing a shortcut through a private lot, though.
Well, let's hold on here for just a moment. Everyone, hold on, let's take a breath here. The businesses that you're talking about are beyond where the restaurant is going to be, and the restaurant is a bit higher, and as a result does need the stairways to gain access to that. So I understand what you're discussing, but I think that by putting a sidewalk that would go in the direction of the proposed restaurant would end at that restaurant. So there would be no value other than to get to that restaurant, because you can't go beyond that restaurant. So
you
better
have to be
position-
actually planning for the whole space, not just sort of a piecemeal.
I
You
understand,
have to
but
be actually looking at the bigger picture.
I understand. But let me complete this thought, because what he has next to them is a residential location as opposed to a completely commercial location. So it would be a better proposal if we could, and we can't do this because we're the planning board, is to get the village to put a sidewalk that would go along the lower part where the parking spaces abut the wall and creep down the side of the wall and then turn right to go past his business and then open up into those businesses that are behind there. But
Mhm.
I do want to see more sidewalks, and I do walk quite a bit to everywhere. But I don't see that it's putting a sidewalk through the parking lot and removing those particular spaces for the sidewalk will do anything except have a sidewalk that ends at the patio of his restaurant, just because of the way that it's positioned and the height that it has. Just my 2 cents.
Go around.
But to go around it, you would need to have it on the lower side so that you could actually circumvent the building. And that would require it to come through the municipal parking lot.
Yep.
Can I say, if you're walking to the grocery store or you're in any plaza, you're at the end of that parking lot, you're walking through a very busy parking lot of all cars coming in and out very fast in every plaza in New Paltz. I mean, you're walking through a parking lot. Very busy.
That's true. But be
Lowe's,
that as it may,
grocery store, every plaza. You're walking right past where cars are driving, and I think 75% of those spaces are tenants that are parked for days at a time because they're walkers too. It's why they live there. So there's almost no traffic coming in and out of that parking lot.
Are the 4 spaces near the proposed identification sign, are those tenant spaces?
Correct.
So you would walk in either along that line of spaces, or you take the stairs from the lot.
Correct.
Okay.
And this revised site plan doesn't have any changes to the parking arrangements, right?
Right.
okay. All right, well, we have some things that we need to do before we get too far along here. Because we're gonna need a public hearing again, some other things. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna need to classify or to vote. We're gonna have to get a motion to classify this as a type 2 action under seeker because it's just a construction or expansion of a primary, accessory, non-residential structure or facility involving less than 4,000 square feet of gross floor area, not involving a change in zoning or use variance. So there is that. Then we are going to have to get a motion to refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board. Because it's located within 500 feet of State Route 299 is not exempt from referral under the agreement with Ulster County Planning Board because it involves new construction. Then we're going to have to set a public hearing. And let's see, the ZBA did grant the variance, I see, to allow a bar to be within 500 feet of a school or church. So really the next things that we need to do is to type this as a type 2 action under seeker. So I need a motion to type the application as a type 2.
So motion.
Need a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. So it is now classified as a type 2 action under seeker. We've gone through some of the site plan modifications. So now we really need to refer this over to the Ulster County Planning Board. So I would like to get a motion to refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board.
So motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And so we're going to get a referral date to the Ulster County Planning Board, but because they meet on the first Wednesday, which is tomorrow. You're not going to get in front of them until the April 1st meeting. So just keep that in mind. Are there any other issues that we really need to go through? I guess, Rick, do you want to kind of lead us through the new B2 district issues that we have there?
Corey made some comments in his memo that was received today. And I had made some comments in my memo, and I had, before the meeting, forwarded those on to Andy for his review and consideration. I don't know that it makes sense to go over all of these.
Okay.
I would think that probably a public hearing probably should wait until those
Right.
issues are resolved. And also you may want to hear first from the Ulster County Planning Board, or at least set the hearing where it's likely you're going to have a report by that date.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to wait then to set a public hearing until after we get the issue back from the Ulster County Planning Board, or we hear from them. And we do have quite a few issues that we need to go through related to B2. And for those of you who are interested, that is in 212.13, where it talks about the new district regulations related to setbacks, lighting, street furniture, on and off-site parking, and just the whole host of things that go through there, including landscaping. So you might brush up on that because we're going to have to look at Corey's memo and kind of review the issues related to that as soon as this information comes back. I think what he said was just to look at that. There was a revision on a parking table on the sheet SP1. Some other revisions on the sheet. And then I believe the HPC must review the proposed changes. The Historic Preservation Committee meets when in March? Do you know, Autumn? Well, they do meet in March, so we'll get in touch with Tom Olson to get that on there. So yeah, there's a whole list of things that we need to go through with this, and Corey needs to weigh in on them first before we can even start on them, given that it's some changes for the district. So I'm not sure how much farther we can go.
So
If I,
Yeah.
if I might, when you set a public hearing, you usually do so at at a planning board meeting. So if Andy believes that he can respond to the various comments in our memo and in Corey's memo and resolve that, and you can anticipate that it's likely that the Ulster County Planning Board will hear this matter on April 6th.
Mhm.
I think it may be okay to set a public hearing for April 20th, or not April 20th,
April
Um,
5th, April 19th.
yeah, April 19th, April 19th. And that way, that would give enough time for the report to get done, for the public to read
Right.
it, for you to digest it, for Andy to have his revised plans. Because otherwise you'd basically wait until the 19th and then set a public hearing for a
Yeah.
further date.
Okay. So let's, I'd like to get a motion to set the public hearing for April 19th.
So motion.
Second on that, please.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll set that public hearing for the 19th. That gives, we will meet on the 5th, but then the 6th, will be the meeting with the Ulster County Planning Board. And that would give us time to get everything resolved so that we can have the public hearing before we meet again. I mean, before, by the 19th, excuse me. All right, anything else that we need to go through on that?
my only question would be, does it make sense to try to come back, say on April 5th, to try to go through a lot of these issues?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, not do it all at one meeting on the 19th.
No, I think that we need to do that. That gives you some time to work with Corey. And I want to request an April, if you could please make Autumn, if you could please make a note here. Like to get, after Andy and Corey meet, or after they work through, I'd like to get Corey's response to the issues that are outstanding on the B2 that be sent to the attorney and to us, so that we can walk through them over the next couple of meetings, so that we can get that all cleared up and get out of the way. And that way, Mr. Keenan, you can get back to building what you need to build.
Great.
All right, does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate you guys working with me here.
Well, like I said, you had it all tied up, man. You had to go move a wall or two and make the bathroom larger.
Trust me, I wish I would have planned ahead a little more. Would have saved me a lot of money and us a lot of time. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your patience.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much. And we will now move on to the next site plan. Again, Andy is going to be joining us. This is PB 211314 on 54 South Mannheim Boulevard. I believe it is no longer called Mannheim Muse, but Harmony Way. Is that correct?
Harmony Hall.
I would
Harmony
suggest, I really would suggest, because I run into this in a lot of different municipalities, that applications sometimes go through various name changes, mostly as they're getting closer to an approval and they want a particular name for the project. But the name that you have during the project review is meaningless. It only has meaning to the extent that it helps you identify it. So when
Right.
you're changing the names, it gets more confusing. So I would suggest that we keep Mannheim Muse, and that obviously that doesn't mean that that's what it has to be named. That's a whole different issue that has nothing to do with the planning board. I understand they're going to call it Rick Golden Homestead anyway, so we'll just see what happens with that. So I think we should just keep it Manheim Muse and not try to change it midstream.
So we'll keep that as a little way to know where we are in the order of things. So we've, I think everyone knows what the summary is on this. It's a site plan and a subdivision consisting, of several parcels that are going to be adjusted, and then they're going to be building this apartments on the property. We did assume lead agency for seeker. We do need to get the FEAF Part 1 back from you guys. And once it's received, then we'll have our attorney prepare the FEAF 2, and then we'll go through this and we'll let it progress as an expanded EAF Part 3, I think is what we had agreed on, allowing the applicant to address the environmental issues. And then we did refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board, and then we will have to set a public hearing once we have been able to go through some of these.
You'll have to go ahead and complete seeker before we set the public hearing because it involves a subdivision.
So I guess what we're doing tonight then is we are going to review the Historic Preservation Committee comments and renderings. I know that some members of the board have some things to contribute regarding this. So why don't we go ahead and get started with that. I believe we'll be getting a presentation there from Mr. Leibold and from Mr. Willingham.
Yeah, so I'll turn it over to Keith in a second, but the main objective tonight is to try to nail down what the board prefers as far as what this building is going to look like. There's some different options. HPC's weighed in. We're also going to the village board next week because they need to approve it because it's more than 30% over the base density of affordable housing. So they're going to take a look as well. So we just wanted really to get to the board's input on the look of the building. And I'll turn it over to Keith.
Here's the question I have. So you presented us with two options, and after the discussion we had last time, what if we don't like either one of the options? No, I'm serious. But what if we don't like either one of the options? That's a third option that I don't think that we've addressed. So no feedback on that? Go back to the board? Just stand there?
I was hoping Keith would take that one.
Well, the zoning, the current zoning drives these buildings to be 2.5 stories by definition. And when you look at the definition of what the zone requires, it drives you to this mansard roof design. It's different than, say, the adjoining building that I believe Sikil built, because the third floor is really a second floor of an apartment, is where we have a corridor loaded building. We don't have stairs within the apartment dwellings. So if we're going to put a building up that's code compliant, these are the designs that it drives you to. We went before the Historic Committee First Commission just to get their input before coming with you. But we also have the ability to go to the trustees and ask for relief from some of the bulk table, according to the zoning. So if this board prefers a straight 3-story look, we can go and ask the trustees if they agree with that. I believe, Andy, did you submit the rendering in the section? I just came up with one of those. That's got a building that has a different type of mansard on it that the third story is not part of. And we're presenting buildings with that roof type because it allows us to pack the most solar possible on that roof and get the HVAC equipment off the ground and up in the air and have it protected from view shed from the ground. Our goal, by the way, I submitted, I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting. I serve over in the town of Gardner on their planning board and on a few other committees, and we had conflicting meetings. But I believe one of the members asked a number of questions and I got a list of them. I met with UAC today and they communicated the list of questions about apartment sizes and rents and utilities, and I submitted answers to, I think I got all of them, but if there's anything you don't have, you're welcome to just send me a note and I'll answer whatever other questions you have regarding how the property will operate. So that's really it on the architecture. We'd like to be able to go to the trustees next week and say, hey, this is sort of the look of the building. This is a solid concept, and either we don't need relief or we do need relief. I'm hesitant to go to the ZBA because, especially for the third story, that's not a common precedence to go from a 2.5 story to 3. And I don't want to set a precedence. If it's just architectural elements that are causing us to exceed the height or causing us to come up with a design change, that's something that they often do, the ZBA. So if it's something more substantial to that, I'd rather present it to the trustees and see if they would choose to give us relief for those things and then come back to the board having that completed.
All right, well, let's see what you've got there, Andy, and we'll take a look.
1 second here. Okay, so this is the 2 that we submitted about a week ago. Keith, you want to describe these?
Well, this building, if I recall, Andy, this is a zoning compliant building where we meet the height requirement. However, there's very little parapet behind what you see that would hide any of the, the rooftop solar or the HVAC equipment. So anything near the edges would be noticeable from the ground. Is that correct, Andy?
Yes, this is the 30-foot height, right?
Yeah. And then we did a different design. You can bring that one up.
Yeah,
This one has a parapet, and it was meant to sort of model both the building that adjoins it and that new structure that the college put up that has that wall of slate. I asked them, I don't know, did you include some real life photos of what that would actually look like? Some of these. Yeah. So these are the types, when you look at the rendering, it's hard to visualize what it is. That's sort of the one type. And that's sort of another type that kind of gives you a visual of what it would really look like. The rooftop veranda would not be on our building. Someone's enjoying a little private balcony up there, but just kind of gives you a feel for what what it would actually look like built, something similar to that. And then we included a rendering of a building we built down in Nanuet, New York. This is the rendering of the building, which, again, this is kind of show you the difference between the rendering and the actual photos. Doesn't look maybe so, how you'd like. They wanted a ground facing image, and the main entrance is split into 2 entranceways because it's actually 2 20-unit buildings that are joined together. So this structure is almost in size as big as the building that we'd be putting up in New Paltz. However, the front facade is obviously larger and bulky because it's got two separate entrances because it was funded by two different programs. And do you have some live images of this building? So that's sort of what the building looks like in real time. And as you can see, the third story isn't built into the mansard. This has some reverse gables, and you can change the look of this a little bit. This is more in line with what we showed you originally as a two-story building, but it's got a third story on it. This building has solar and some HVAC on the roof, and you don't see it from the grade level, but it's full. At the lower peak, I think you're about 34 feet. And at the highest peak, I think you're 37 feet. That one architectural element, they're 8-on-12 pitches, so they're kind of steep and they run up tall. And I think, do you have any interior photos of this one, Andy, as well? I think I had Keith send over a few. Now, this is a typical, these units are very similar in size to what these apartments would look like. And construction. This is a particular interior design palette that a designer did. That's typical kitchen. Got Andy. That's normally what the common areas might look like. This is a grayscale. We tend to change the color palette on the senior buildings by floors, just so that they have a visual aid. After they're coming back from their Friday evening cocktails and parties in the community room. Is there any more photos, Andy?
No.
Okay, so.
All right. You know, and I appreciate the interior, but I think that what we're being asked to do is to make a decision on the exterior. So let's just go ahead and remain in that
Sure.
in that mode. So I understand that one of our participants is going to need to take off here pretty soon. So why don't you go ahead and go first, and let's hear your thoughts.
Okay. My thoughts are about the architecture are that I appreciate it more in terms of its functionality. In other words, I feel like it's always better to have large windows, but I like the idea of some passive solar. And in terms of the windows themselves, I feel like I don't know how to describe this. I don't mean to be insulting or in any way, but I feel like the architecture that doesn't really serve any function except to try to make it look like a townhouse, where it's not really bumping the window out. There's just kind of a little fake roof, a little fake triangle there that doesn't really do anything. I don't see how these really serve a purpose. To me, they don't add any sort of aesthetic value to it because they're so obviously fake. Do you know what I mean? I mean, as opposed to sort of like a real dormer window where the reason for it is that the roof is slanted, and the window pops out so that you actually can have a window there, and so that it sort of extends your living space, as opposed to a flat window that just sort of has a little fake triangle on top of it. And I don't know if I wasn't able to, I didn't see the whole, I didn't read all the documents. I apologize for that. I would like to take a look at those. But that's all. And I also don't understand exactly how this other roof is hiding the HVAC. Is it like you can't really see from looking at the diagram, at least I couldn't. Is it like a wall that comes up and then the HVAC is behind it somehow? I don't personally think solar panels are ugly. I guess I feel like I'm not in complete understanding of it, and I understand we're gonna revisit it and look at it again. And I'm really sorry that I have to leave in a few minutes.
Sure. The mansard systems just step down behind them, and they create a 3-foot shield back down to the roof. So the roof is actually lower behind those
So it's just
mansards and it lets
a
you.
wall in front of the roof is basically what it is.
Yeah, it's an architect. Yeah, it's meant to look like a piece of roof that comes up, and then behind it, it drops down, and it allows you to screen equipment that you might otherwise have to put down on the at grade level outside. And it seemed to us the board was preferring that we put it up on the roof. So that's sort of why we showed those options with, they call it a blind mansard, because you can hide things behind it.
I'd be curious to see what it looks like, what it looks like without that, when it's
Yeah,
not
that's
hidden.
sure. That's image one. It's the first building, and your roof is basically right behind those little bump out windows there. But anything you put up there, you'll see. That's this design here. So your roof is right behind there. So anything, if you stood up there, you would see someone standing up there.
Right, but I don't see any HVAC up there right now.
Well, we didn't put it up there. I mean,
That's
I
what
can
I'm
put it up
saying.
there.
I can't
It'll
see what
stick
it
up.
would look like if the HVAC were sitting there, what it would look like,
Sure.
like whether you really need to build this wall. I don't know how much it costs to build an extra wall. You're talking about affordable housing here. That's what I'm curious about. How much does the wall, because you're showing the building without the wall that hides the HVAC, but you don't have the HVAC on it.
Yeah, I could.
I mean,
I could do a rendering with it up there. It's
if that's how you're selling it,
I'm not selling it. I'm
no,
just,
you know what I
that's
mean.
the-
I don't mean sell. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're saying it's better to have the wall because then you won't see this equipment, but then your other rendering doesn't show what it looks like with the equipment.
Well, Rachel, which do you personally, without the HVAC issue, which do you think looks better? Which do you prefer?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know who might have, I mean, the Gustafsson I don't know. I mean, I
That's
feel like
fine.
what I like is, I mean, I'm interested in functionality. As far as the aesthetics go, I think, that's a matter of taste. Who am I to say this one looks better than the other one? I mean,
Okay.
I feel like it should be, you're talking about cost, you're talking about function, you're talking about, alternative energy, if it's.
Well, here's an opportunity. Why don't we, Andy, can you and Mr. Leibold present to us a drawing and let's see the equipment that is going to be on top of it, so that we can get an idea of what it looks like with the equipment and then hidden by the mansard. That way, it gives us a point on which to perhaps make a better decision. That way, we know what is there, and then we can see what is not, and then we can make a determination as to which we think may be better, and we can work with that. How's that sound?
I'm
Rachel,
sorry. I feel like if the whole board is in agreement, why do we need to go back and forth with another round of drawings? Like it seems like Rachel
In agreement about
doesn't-
what? In agreement about what?
which design, because if you don't really care aesthetically between the two options and we all prefer one, then
If that were the only criteria, sure, that were the only criterion, but I mean, are you saying that it's going to cost the same amount to have the wall or not have the wall? That I mean, all other considerations being equal,
I haven't asked. It's not really a money question to us. We're just trying to move the ball forward. This is our third round of drawings with the board. I tried to go to the Historic Commission. I'll do any one of these three. It really, we're trying to take a very collaborative and community-minded approach to this.
So wait a minute. You're saying the first, any one of the three, the very first one you showed us, and then the other two. I thought the first one was smaller. Didn't you make it a lot bigger? I mean, didn't you add more apartments?
I'm sorry, we added the third story. based on the densities that are allowed, and the site plan could handle the densities. That allowed us to incorporate units of much lower rent, which made the advocacy group very happy. We now have 11 units that are lower rent levels than the previous model, because we're able to add units and just how the whole model plays out. They've been working with us on the grant and finance package, and it's really, what we need to know is, what does this board prefer? And if you can get to a look that you prefer, that lets me go to the trustees and say, this is what the boards prefer. Are you on board with this as well? And then they'll say yes or no. And if they do, they'll give us the relief we need. If there is any relief needed, then I come back here to the next meeting and we work on the site plan related issues.
Was the HPC's preference for version 2 just based on the screening of the rooftop HVAC system, or was it other?
Yeah, no, well, we didn't show them the option of having a full third story. We were trying to stay with a zoning compliant building that only would need relief for architectural elements on height that the zoning board has previously allowed. So that we're not asking for any type of new preference. We then came to this board last time. The board expressed some question as to whether they liked the mansard style. We went back and realized we could get height relief if the board desired the different look. So then I threw in, okay, well, here's a conventional 3-story structure and with a shortened roof. So we had that screened roof space for all the HVAC and all the solar improvements we want to throw up there. That's really the genesis of how we got here.
And when you say the third version, you're talking about the one that was down in Nyack or wherever it was?
Yeah, that's correct. A 3-story, a true 3-story building instead of a 2.5-story building.
And that true 3-story building was, you would be able to screen the solar and HVAC somewhere up there.
And
those live
back up
photos.
again?
Those live photos that, show the live photo, because that's
Okay,
the
so
outside.
we have
Yeah.
2 that would screen the equipment in the back. The first is the mansard roof, and the second one is this. The third photo, or the third choice, or the third option that you would like to explore, is one that would have 2.5 stories, plus there would be equipment on top that would be visible. Is that correct?
Well, I think, John, that the first code compliant is the 2.5 stories, but
with the equipment on the top.
You'll see the equipment on the top. The second one is this one. That's the first one.
That's
Correct.
the first one. That's 100% code compliant building. I don't
And that
know
would
if
have
I
the
need.
equipment on the top.
Then the second one is the larger mansard.
Well, hold on. Go back to the first one. So this building, the first image, this code compliant building, the AC compressors would be at grade. And the only thing that would be up on the roof would be the solar panels. So you would see the solar panels on the roof of this building, and the extent in which you'd see them would be the extent of the tilt angle. They'll project up, I would say, 4 feet.
So
based on what we've done.
Rick, just a question here. Would the having the solar panels on top, would that require a height variance?
Well, they have the ability to get relief other than a variance
Okay.
from the Board of Trustees because of the housing unit that they're doing and the density they're getting.
Okay.
But it would be up to Corey. I don't know how Corey handles issues such as solar panels and whether or not that counts in a building height or it's exempted from the building height.
Okay. I'm trying to remember back to the only other place that we really had this before us was with the Zero place, and I can't remember because it needed a variance anyway, given its height. whether it needed one for the solar panels height or not. I don't remember.
Yeah, I just remember the solar panels on the lower portion of it, not on the roof, but
Yeah.
it may have been on the roof.
Yeah, I don't think we did because they weren't mounted fast. They're counterweighted, but I could be wrong. It was 3 years ago. So
I believe there is an exception. I don't have the code in front of me, but I believe there's an exception for solar panels to go above the height.
Okay.
So it just seemed to be with this model, you didn't really care for the HVAC units on the ground, and you didn't really care to look at the solar on the roof. I don't mind seeing the solar on the roof, but
Me neither.
look, I'm,
It's actually a New Paltz selling point.
well, because it does say, hey, this building is an advanced, it's a clean energy initiative structure. So,
I don't know why I don't show them.
Okay.
On the
Um,
part.
well, because I was really just doing a building rendering. I wasn't, considering showing those panels on the roof. And the historic commission did definitely have a preference, which was the second building. We actually went and, we had one meeting with them with this design and then came back to them with a second design based on their comments, which was building 2. That's this building. They preferred this building, and I know some people had asked, this is our second meeting discussing this, where we had this little paneled area on the second set of windows in from the corner about maybe being able to combine them into a slightly larger reverse gable. That's that right there. And we, I think we did a black and white section of that somewhere that we submitted just for your review to look at. But this has a 30, I believe, what is it, Andy, a 36 or 32 inch drop behind this mansard, which would allow us to move then all the HVAC equipment up on the roof and place the solar equipment back there.
Okay.
So here the variance we'd be asking for would just be a height variance for architectural reasons.
Right. Okay. So we've come down to these 3 as being options.
Yeah.
And the 4th option, of course, then would be that we don't like any of them. So at this point, I think we need to kind of get a sense of the board as to what they believe. Now, the first one, we're gonna call the first one the original presentation that
Yeah, the
was
code
height
compliant one.
What's that?
The code compliant one.
The code compliant one. So we're going to go with the first one as being the code compliant one. And let's get a quick set of opinions. I know, Rachel, you prefer to have the code compliant one. Is that correct?
I don't have I feel like I'd like to see. I don't know. I don't know whether
Andy, can you put
they're
that
all
in?
equal. What I'm hearing is that they're equal in terms of everything, in terms of the amount of solar and the amount of that everything is, they're all equal except for the look of it. Is that it?
Yes.
Yes.
Then I don't care. I mean, if that's if there's no other difference, just the way it looks.
That's all.
The windows aren't larger. They're not getting more light they're not getting more light into the house, into the apartment with the second version.
No. I don't think those windows are connected to any of the
It's
apartments.
just a wall. No, but I mean on the roof there, that's the main difference, is the way the windows look. You've got those
Yeah, it's the
You've got
same
the-
amount of light area. The window designs may be a little different, but the
How much
overall light
glass?
area, exactly. The amount of glass that comes into the apartments, they're approximately the same.
Okay.
And And of course, we're looking at the south face of the building, so it's going to get there's going to be a lot of light in these units on that side of the building.
So yes, Rachel, you are correct. So the code compliant one, the mansard or the 3-story, the primary difference between the 3 of them is that the equipment would be hidden, as opposed to with the code compliant, the equipment of the solar panels would be visible there, and the air conditioning would be down on the ground at the grade level. And with the mansard, the air conditioning units would be behind that mansard along with the solar panels, so they would all be hidden. And the third, they again would all be hidden, but it's simply a different look as opposed to the mansard style.
And you're not gaining more rooms or more apartments by having a 3rd story?
No. They are granted through the affordable housing a certain level of bonus, and they are maximizing that within the existing building. The addition of a story would not have any effect on the number of units. They're not putting any units on the 3rd floor.
Okay, I gotta go. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Move it. Get off the computer.
All right. So now we, the 4 of us get to look at that. I think Rachel has made her views known, that she's more concerned about the functionality, and as there are not going to be any more units, that she is not particularly concerned about the look. So with that, Dennis, which one of those do you think would rather see?
I want to go with the second one. I've looked at them quite extensively. I'm going to go along with Tom Olson. I think the Historic Preservation Society does a lot of work. I personally like the look, but that's nothing to do with it. Architecture is in the eyes of the beholder. But I want to go with what Tom said. Plus, you're getting the HVAC on the roof and the solar panels as well. It's still, as far as I can gather, Keith, you said that's still code compliant?
No.
No.
No?
No,
So he has to go, okay.
So that has to go for a height variance for architectural reasons.
Oh, and so would the 3rd.
Yes.
So the third's a little different, because you've got a height variance for architectural purposes, but you also have relief from 2.5 stories to 3. So the 3rd building would require additional relief, both of which can be handled at the village trustee meeting rather than the ZBA. But there is a difference in the amount of relief that would be needed. Is that correct, Mr. Golden?
Yes. Yeah. So they both, number 2 and number 3, typically would need a variance from a ZBA, but under these conditions, the Board of Trustees can grant that relief from the bulk requirements. Number 2 is substantially less in the height difference that they would have to give relief for. It's approximately 3 feet, I guess. So is that right? Keith, is that about 3 feet?
Yeah,
or so?
I think it's 3 or 4. Yeah.
Okay. And the other one is a full story.
The other one, the height relief is it averages about 3.5, but those larger reverse gables, it's a 7-foot relief to the peak of that high gable. But it's what gives it some architectural element. The 3-story building is the same height as the 2.5-story building to the roof. The difference is the mansard designs and how the village code defines a half story from a full story. The half story requirement drives you to make sure that the exterior wall of your third story, is part of the supporting roof system. And we went through an extensive code review with Corey to make sure that those two renderings you looked at qualified as a half story, even though under building code, it's 3-story building. So I don't know why they wrote the code that way. My assumption is they were driving to that architecture for a 3-story building, because that's what that does. But if you found that architecture egregious, I could go to the village trustees and say, hey, the planning board really didn't care for the 2.5-story here. They'd prefer this design. It makes no difference to us. There's no difference in cost to construct. The 2.5-story with the mansard is probably more money to build, because you've got the like slate material on there, and you've got the reverse gabled windows that are going to be a little bit more money. But in the overall scale of the building, I mean, if it gets you architecturally what you want, it gets us what we want, and we can move on.
Okay.
And you haven't shown the third design to Tom Olson.
You know, I did not, because they really liked the second one.
Yeah.
And I just figured I'd come to the planning board and you'd go, yeah, the second one's much nicer, and we just would move on.
Well, I
and it's
actually,
okay.
not to cut you short, but I look at a lot of this stuff and I see the one that you have in it's Nanuet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it, you know, because that's part of my territory. I think that would not be, I like the second one. And again, not only do I like it, but you're telling me it's very efficient in design, and that it's been approved by the Historic Preservation Committee. So for those 3 reasons, I'll end it here. I want to go with the second one.
Very good. Okay, Tom, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, number 2 as well. For the same reasons Dennis mentioned in terms of the Historic Planning Commission. And I think also, I also don't mind seeing solar panels, but I think that being able to put the compressor on the roof would sell it for me. And I also thought the photos you have of what it actually look like with the slate look good. So 2 for me.
Okay. Zach?
Yes, also leaning towards 2. It's definitely important for me to hide the HVAC, and I think having the solar panels will also not be visible is a added bonus. So yeah, number 2 or number 3 would be my choices, but I think number 2 is a little more interesting visually.
Okay. All right. So I agree that number 2 is the one that I appreciate. So that's kind of the sense of the board, guys, that we would like to have, we would like to see number 2.
Okay. Rick, do I need a referral to go to the Board of Trustees for this, or do I need anything from, I don't think I need anything from the planning board.
No.
It doesn't mention it in the code. It simply says
Okay.
you need that relief from the Board of Trustees. It actually says that you need to do it. You should be going there first. We're in a different situation because you started here and then you changed to something that needed the Board of Trustees approval. So I think you're acting appropriately now, getting an idea of what you need is to the rendering from the planning board, so that you could take and ask the board for relief as well when you're before them. But then they can't make a decision because seeker isn't completed, but they can make a recommendation as what they want. We'd then go to seeker, complete that. You'd then have to go back to the board for an actual approval. But that's just a formality.
For the Board of Trustees?
Yeah. Because
Really?
they can't make a decision until seeker is done.
Okay.
And that's how the code is actually written. It says that the board trustees gets it. It discusses whether or not it's acceptable, that not necessarily the relief, because the relief is supposed to happen afterwards under the code provision. The code then says, after they generally say, yes, we're willing to give you this bonus, It then says it goes to the planning board does seeker, and then it says, and the board of trustees can give relief. But from a legal point of view, even if they wanted to, they couldn't give any final decisions until after seeker is done. Otherwise, they'd have to do seeker.
I understand.
So,
So,
but
we'll
it's
we'll
going to
do
be,
seeker.
I think what will happen practically is when you
Yep,
go
yep.
to them, you'll talk about getting the bonus. Obviously, that's the main reason, but you'll also talk about relief, but you simply won't get a final decision from them. You shouldn't want a final decision because then
Oh,
it's
no. No, I
susceptible to a
understand.
challenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you'd get their recommendation and they're saying, yeah, we're fine with that. For instance, if they go along with number 2 as well, that would definitely leaning toward giving you that relief from the bulk table. You then come back to the planning board, finish seeker. You'd go back to the board of trustees, just one meeting, and they'd say fine.
Okay.
All right, so we're all clear. We have given our tacit approval on the design. So your next stop will be going to the Board of Trustees. So, and then once that's done, you'll be back for us. In the meantime, Mr. Willingham, you will be working on seeker. Is that correct?
Yes, so the next time you see us, you're gonna have a lot of information. SWIP, all the things Rick asked for. So it's gonna be a big submittal coming next time we see you.
Yeah, and going before that's going to be, that work is going to be done now as they're going to the Board of Trustees.
Correct.
They'll likely be finished with the Board of Trustees for that quote unquote recommendation. And then you'll have everything you need to go through. And as soon as Andy gives me the FEAF part 1, I'm not going to wait until the next meeting to get approval to start the FEAF part 2. We'll start that right away from my office so that the next time it's on, you'll have the materials. You can go through the FEAF part 2 and then try to make a determination of significance or see if there's any outstanding issues that you need some more information or modifications from them before giving
So
the final.
we'll look at 1 and 2 at our next meeting.
Yes, hopefully Andy will have it to you quickly, right, Andy?
Yeah, we plan on submitting on Monday. We meet with the village board next Wednesday. If it goes well, we get, they give us conceptual approval there, and then we can continue on with this board. If we don't, then, you don't have to, I guess we wouldn't return to this board until we got that, but.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have any issues with the village. We've been in communication with them. Okay.
All right, anything else from the board members? No?
John, just before we adjourn the meeting, I do want to just make a statement about
Sure.
my
Yeah.
status.
Okay, we'll do that here.
Or we can close out this application.
So thank you very much. We appreciate you being here, and we will see you at our next meeting.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
So
for the board,
we'll hang on here just a second. So really what we have next is the public comment to close that out. If there's anyone in there that's is there anyone, Autumn, that you've seen for public comment?
We have one attendee and they've left the room. So
Okay. All right, so I need a motion to close the public comment section
So motion.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now our attorney, Mr. Golden, has a little note for us.
so I have been offered the position of county attorney for Orange County. It's a law department of about 27 lawyers. And I've accepted it. But it's a full-time position, obviously, and I need to leave the law firm which means that I'll also be leaving the clients. So that will happen at the end of April. And then you will have Ashley Torrey, who you've seen before on occasion. She's been helping the planning board since 2016, and now also does by herself the ZBA. Most of the wonderful memos that you get from me are really from Ashley, and I just add some additional points here or there. So Ashley is very familiar with all the applications that you have before you. So I don't think you'll skip a beat with that at all. I'm sorry for my throat. I have a sore throat and head cold, but so it may not seem that I'm as happy as I am, but I'm very happy to move on to this new position for me. It's very good for me, and I'm looking forward to getting back to public service again. But I also want to tell this board that I'm very much have been honored to represent this board since 2016. It's really been wonderful, and my privilege to do so. And I feel very comfortable in that Ashley will be following along and representing him in like manner. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. It's been a good association. I know you're not leaving yet, but it's been a very good association. We're looking forward to it. I've worked with Ashley before. She's very, as Rick is, she is very detail oriented and insightful, and she knows she knows all the procedures, and we're not going to, I hate to say it, but in that aspect, you won't be missed.
No, that's fine. And I'm happy with that, actually. Right. And Ashley handles several other planning boards, including some very busy ones in Orange County. The town of Monroe is a very busy board, and she's the planning board attorney for there. She's also the planning board attorney for Minnesink. So she's very familiar with the planning board process, and also, as I said, familiar with all of the issues for this board because she prepares the memos for your review on these boards. But thanks again. My pleasure.
Congratulations, Rick. Sorry to
Thank
see you go, but
Thank you.
Yeah, you will be missed.
Thank you, Zach.
We'll miss your smiling face, but attorney advice, maybe not so much, and that's a good thing. All right, so with that in mind, like to get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
The motion.
And a second,
second.
all in favor? Aye.
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 So the meeting is completed. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you at the next one.
Have a
Good night, all.
Good night.